So next we have Jason Lengstorf, who's the head of developer relations at Gatsby, everyone's favorite open source project. He also just informed us on the stream chat that if you want some beard tips, it's behind a paywall, and he will gladly accept your money. So let's give it up for Jason.
Hello, everyone. So today we're going to talk about building a Gatsby portfolio. And where Nader is very polished, he's got his stuff together, I am very much not like that. So we're going to handle this more like I handle my live streams, which is to make it up as we go along. So I'm Jason. I stream on Mondays and Fridays on Twitch at Lengstorf is what I am there. That's what I am on Twitter. And I have a website at lengstorf.com. So what we're going to do today is we're going to build our first Gatsby portfolio. So I cloned this repo here, which we can check out. Let's take a look at it. And if you want to take a look at this, it's all pretty good, all pretty set up. And this is a pretty straightforward Gatsby site. So the way that I like to do this is to just kind of start with a almost empty directory. So what we have is in our package.json, we've installed all the dependencies that we're going to use so that nobody has to watch me do an npm install. But we don't have a Gatsby config, Gatsby source, any of the things that you would use to build this. And so we have an empty project. It is showing us our project code here. And then I pre-wrote the CSS because nobody wants to watch me write CSS. So to start, what we're going to do is let's pull up the terminal, and I'm just going to run this. So I'm going to run Gatsby develop. And you saw the code. So while we're waiting for that to start, just to kind of reiterate here, all we have is a CSS file and an index file. There's no Gatsby specific anything going on. I do have some commands to run Gatsby develop, but I just ran it globally because I have the CLI installed. And it gets started for us. It'll be running. And when I click through, that's fun. What did I do? Well, this is going to be a fun day. How the hell did you even break? We're not even using that. Cool. Okay, so give me just 1 second here while I fix that.
I mean, you gave us a warning about the unpolished moves. I feel like, this is exactly what we expect.
Yeah, exactly. This is all part of the journey, is debugging your own project that definitely worked when you tested it 25 minutes ago. So I'm just deleting everything and starting over again. And if worst comes to absolute worst here, what I will do is check out my last commit that I know worked, and we'll just walk through that. But let's see, this is my favorite part. We will get to watch the Fragment build. Oh boy, that was almost 2 elevator music lengths. All right, so let's try this one more time. We'll Gatsby develop. Image sharp sizes. Odd things are happening here. All right, so here's what I think I'm going to do. Let me just dump this because I know that one worked. So we're going to check out this one. And then I'm going to run a yarn install. And hopefully this one gives us what we want. And if that doesn't work, I'm just going to start with a completely new project, and we're really going to we'll go cowboy code in here.
Or you're going to make some sick beats.
Yeah, if all else fails, I'm pulling up that app that Nader was showing us. I'm just going to make beats for a half hour.
He whipped up some quick, good beats, so you have a lot of challenge there.
Yeah, that was cooler than I think I could have done. Let's try this again. Yarn develop. Okay, apparently one of the new dependencies isn't working. So, all right, we got ourselves a project. Let me make that a little bit bigger so we can see it. And now we can actually begin doing things. So the first thing that I want to do is I just want to set up our React components. And so the React components that we're going to build, we're going to need a couple. We need a project preview, if I can spell it right. And we're also going to need a project. And then let's just go ahead and set those up actually. So we'll start here. We're going to get React from React. Then we're going to import link from Gatsby. That's so that we can link between pages. Then I'm going to import image from Gatsby image. And that's so that we can show images in a lazy loaded kind of optimized way. We'll look at more at how that works here in a minute. Then I'm going to create this component. So it's going to accept a title, a description, a URL, and image data. And it's going to return a div. And I did this with class names. You could do it with your preferred flavor of CSS and JS. You could use CSS modules. I really just used class names so that I wouldn't have to do multiple CSS files. I did it all in that one, and then we can reference it here. All right, so we've got our title. I'm going to do, so this is where I would do the image, but because I don't have images, I'm actually just going to put a placeholder for the image here. Then we want to grab our description. We want to get a link. So let's go, you want to be able to go see that project. So this will be its public URL, and we'll say like view this project online. I'm going to date myself by knowing HTML enemies or entities. So we'll say a right arrow, and then we'll do another one that's, and this is going to be the link. So this will take us back out to the home page. And we'll use a left arrow this time, back to all projects. And so we're doing something that I think is important to call out here. First, we're creating a component, and you'll note that this component doesn't do anything with data. It's just a React component. It takes some props and it displays those props. This is something that I think is really important when you're thinking architecturally about your projects, because you shouldn't, when you're a front-end developer, you shouldn't have to think about your data. Your data should just be available. And so putting it in as the props allows us to do that. Project preview is going to be almost the same thing. So let me just copy it and paste it across, and then let's make the changes that need to be made. So we're going to call this project preview, and it's going to get the title, description, and instead of a URL, it's going to get a slug. We're going to link this heading. So we'll link to the slug. And instead of an H1, we're going to use an H2. And we probably want that to be outside. That's bad markup that I just did. Don't take advice from me on accessible markup. Actually do it like this. H2 is on the outside. Then we need to have an image. I think on the previews, we want the image up top. So we'll figure out how to do that. And we are then going to keep that description. But I do think I'm going to drop this link and instead do one like this. And we'll say like view this project. We'll keep that right arrow in there. And then I don't want a link to the homepage because we're already on the homepage. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what we need. So at this point, we're not doing anything with this data. So let's put together on the index page, we're actually going to use it. So with this one, we're going to use the project preview. And we'll get that from components, project preview. And I don't really know what that's going to look like yet because we haven't gotten any data. But I think what we can do is I'm going to use, let's see. Well, we're going to need some kind of a common layout, right? So maybe we should build that common layout because we're also not using the CSS anywhere yet. So before we do anything, let's build layout.js. And I'm going to just import React from React. We want to be able to link to things. So we're going to get link from Gatsby. And we also want to use that style sheet. So let me grab layout.css. And note, I'm just importing that straight up. Gatsby will make sure that it's available. We don't have to do any additional work. So that's one of the convenient things about doing it this way. There's no dependencies, no setup or anything. We can just drop it in. Then in our component, I'm going to set up a React fragment. And inside of that React fragment, I'm going to set up the header. And we'll give it a class name of header, surprise. And then we will link to my portfolio. And this is a part that you could control. You know, if you wanted to, you could put this in a setting. You could store it in a database or something. Because it's a demo, we're not going to worry about those types of abstractions. I will leave that as an exercise to you, the developer. This one's going to be called content, and we'll just put the children. So whatever gets put into this layout, that's what we'll use in this content class. Export default layout. And now we've got ourselves a layout that we can use. So when I go into this index here, I also want to have that. And that's why I thought about this, because we don't just want to throw content on the page. We want to have it wrapped up in some kind of nice way. So I'm going to return a layout, and inside the layout, we can send back. Eventually we'll get some data and make that look nice. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put one project preview in here, and we know what we want it to say. It needs a title. It needs a description. It needs a slug, and it needs image data. And that image data would be kind of a block. It's an object of different settings. That's going to come out of Gatsby. We're not actually going to have to think about that. And we're not using it for now. So for now, let's add in React-Adelphia. Call it an awesome meetup. And we'll say React-Adelphia. Okay. Now, if I go back out, the site's been running this whole time. We haven't done an image yet, so I'm not worried about that. But we can go and look, and we can see this is set up. If I click through, it doesn't do anything. We haven't built that page, but we're using our project. So how do we get data into here? To save us time, I went ahead and put together some simple projects. So I added 2 projects as a JSON file. And each one has a URL. We've got these images. The images are stored locally so that but these are big images. These are, let's see, 1280 by 686. Those are big images. We're not going to show them that big on the homepage, so we want to optimize them. And so the way that we're going to do that is we are going to set up a Gatsby config. So I've already installed what I need. I need Gatsby source file system. We need Gatsby plugin sharp, Gatsby transformer sharp, and Gatsby transformer JSON. So file system allows us to read this projects.json, the JPEGs, and we can just point it to this data directory and say, hey, anything in here, get that and use it. Then we use the transformer JSON to say, hey, I found a JSON file, turn that into something that Gatsby can read, put it into our GraphQL layer. Sharp is a third-party library. I think it's a C library that does hardcore image optimization and transformation and resizing and color manipulation and all sorts of fun stuff. We have wrapped that so that we can, well, actually, we didn't do it. I forget his name, but he created Node Sharp. And then Gatsby Transformer Sharp and the plugin Sharp are a collection of utilities that let us use that in Gatsby. So we're going to install those by creating a Gatsby config.js. And in it, we need to export a config object. That's going to have a plugins array. And I'm going to set up Gatsby plugin sharp, Gatsby transformer, can't spell it, sharp, Gatsby transformer JSON. And then we need some options for this one. So we're going to do it long form. Gatsby source file system. Okay. So this resolve, these are equivalent right now. If you use the shorthand, we will just automatically set up an object that says, resolve to the plugin name and pass no options. But if you need to pass options, we need these keys because we're saying this is the plugin and these are the options for that plugin. We want to set this up. We'll call it project. And then we're going to set the path to be data because we just want to get everything that's in this folder. Now, after I save this, because I've changed the config, I'm going to stop and restart. And what we should see, if all goes well, is no errors. Okay, good deal. And now I'm going to open up graphical so we can look at our data layer. And in here, you can see an old query. And I'm going to look at the docs. And if I poke around in here, I can see we've got things like files. So files is good. I like that. Oh, this is even more promising. All projects JSON. Let's try that one. So I'm going to go to all projects JSON. And then what do we get in here? Edges. Okay. Node. If you've never seen edges and nodes before, this is kind of a GraphQL. It really comes out of like graph theory. The edges are the relationships between data, and the nodes themselves are the data. So you can think of a node as like a page or like a person, and then an edge would be like the friendship between two people, if that makes sense. In Gatsby, you don't have to think about it too much. You can just kind of dive in. The edges is going to be the object with stuff. The node is going to be the actual stuff. And then I'm hitting option. I think that's what I'm hitting. Wait, let me close this. Option spacebar, and that gives me a list of all the available keys. So I want that title, I want the slug, I want the description, and I want the image. But notice my image here is giving me an error, and that doesn't make any sense, right? Because I wanted to get the title, slug, image. Now this image is just a string. But because Gatsby is smart, it looks at this JSON file and it sees that that image string is actually a relative path. So it follows that relative path and then it optimizes the image. So now I can see like the relative path to that image. Let me also grab the URL because that was the last thing we needed. So now I have in my data layer access to all of these things. I've got my two projects. We've got the relative path to the image. That's all good. But it goes deeper because I also have the sharp images. Those are transformations. And we can get either fixed or fluid size. Fluid size is responsive, so we're going to use that one. And I'm going to look in here a little bit deeper, and I can see, what's this? A source set. So let's click that button, see what happens. And now I can see, here's our original image at 1280 wide. So if I come up here, go out to my localhost 8000, paste this in, here's my big image, right? So that's what we expected. We expected to get the 1280 because that's what we put in. But where it really gets powerful is we automatically created a little tiny baby image for previews. And so now, if you're on a small device, instead of having to download 1280 pixels of image and then resize it in your browser to 200 pixels wide, we'll just send you a 200 pixel wide version so that you don't have to waste any data transfer. This is all kind of done for you in the background. Again, I created a JSON file and a list of images, and Gatsby did all of this for us. So where this gets really exciting is now I can take this query and I can move into our index file. And now I can just like do some fun stuff with it. So let's start by, let's display it on the home page. So I'm going to get import GraphQL from Gatsby. And then I'm going to add a page query. So because this is in the pages directory, we can export a query. So I'm going to export a const called query and use this GraphQL template tag. And I'm going to drop this GraphQL query that we did almost exactly intact. The only difference is that Gatsby has access to image fragments. And so I can use these like shorthand fragments that are collections of field data. And if we go back out and look at this, all of these different fields, we've got like a base 64. So that base 64 is like, that's something we can put right into the URL of, or the source of an image, and it'll just show up on the screen, no download required. So it cuts out a request. If we get, if we wanted to get WebP, if we want to get the sizes or the aspect ratio, we can get all of those things because it's been calculated by Sharp. So these are all things that make our lives really easy because we don't, we would have to do math, we would have to know these things, but because Gatsby is ingesting all of this data at build time, it can take it, determine these things for us, and then give them back to us as aspects. And this fragment bundles all of that up. So now that we've got this query is going to be picked up by Gatsby and then injected into our component as a data prop. So I can go in here, grab out the data prop, and then it's going to go data.allprojects.json.edges, and then I can map over those to get our nodes. So let's go in here, and I'm going to, let's see, I will go data.allprojects.json.edges.map, and then in here, I'm going to destructure. So I need to go parentheses, and then we'll get that node. And I'm going to alias it to project just so that it kind of makes sense to my brain. And then inside of it, we can do a little bit of, so this is probably going to bother you when I do it, but I'm doing it for a good reason. I'm going to specifically call out each thing into a variable. So I'm going to do title equals project title. I'm going to do description equals project description. I can feel some of you just like dying inside as I'm doing this. Slug, project.slug, and then we'll do image data equals project.image.childImage sharp.fluid. Okay, so again, we alias this. So project.image.childImage sharp.fluid. We're not using that, so get rid of it. We're also not using this, so we can get rid of it. And this kind of shows one of my favorite things about GraphQL, which is that you only have to ask for the data you're actually using. We get to dump the rest of it and not deal with it. And so then once we have that, we can return our project preview. So I'll just take this one that we've done. I'll bring it straight up, and I'm going to replace this with title. I'm going to replace this with description. Replace this one with slug, and replace this one with image data. And now that we have some image data, I can go into my project preview and we can actually use it. So let's do, we're going to link to the slug. And inside, we're going to do an image. And because we're using fluid, we'll call fluid, pass in the image data. And we always want to supply an alt tag, so we will make that the title for now. Ideally, you would have an actual alt tag. But here's what's exciting. Now that we've done that, when I go back out to this local host, we've got projects, right? These just work. They do what we want. I think I broke something here. Oh, I know what I broke. In the project preview, I forgot to name this project preview because it should be a nice little preview and not the, there we go. That's what we want. So nice little previews that, that'll take us through, but they don't do anything yet. So let's make these pages exist. To do that, we're going to programmatically generate pages. So here we make the data available, but we're not saying like, for every project, create a page. In order to do that, we have to do a Gatsby node.js. How are we doing on time? I'm out of time. I'm going to do this as fast as I possibly can. Exports.create pages. And then I will get, let's see, async. We're going to do actions and GraphQL. And then down here, I'm going to get data. The result of this is going to be an await of GraphQL. And I'm going to query all projects JSON, not my name, JSON. And then we're going to get edges, node, and slug. That's probably fine. Down here, if result.errors, we will, we'll just log it for now. Result.errors. That would probably need some work in an actual project, but we're going to trust that this is just going to work. If we get result.data, then we can go to all project json.edges.map. And inside of that, we're going to get a node, which again, I will alias to project. And inside, I'm going to, and we're not going to map because we're not actually returning anything. So let's use a for each instead. So inside here, I can do an actions.createPage. And create page is something that gets sent in. Gatsby bundles up a lot of little helper action functions. The create page API takes a path, which we will set to be the project slug. And then it takes a component, which we're going to need to create. We'll decide that it's going to live in a template. So it's going to live in source templates, and we'll call this project template.js. And finally, we're going to send in some context. And that context that we want to send in, we can just send in the slug. Okay, so now that we've saved this, if I stop and start again, what should happen, assuming I didn't typo anything, is we should get actual pages. But it looks like I typoed something. Oh, we didn't create our template yet. So let's do that. I'm going to create templates and project template.js. Here, we will import React from React, and we'll also import, well, let's do that in a second. So we'll start by just saying project template, and we'll import the project from components project. And we'll also import layout from components layout. Okay. And this is going to be a component that is going to return a layout, and then it's going to return a project. And that project needs to have all of those things that we set. So where are we going to get those? We need a title, we need the description, we need the URL, and we need the image data. And that one's going to be an object of some sort. So let's set this up to be a test. We'll set the description up to be a test. The URL will be an example.corgi. And then we will export that. All right, so now if I stop and restart, we actually have a template to build. And what we should get is that the pages should be created, but they shouldn't have the data. Okay, so that's looking promising, no errors. Let's get back in here. All right, so now if I click on this, I go to project 1 and it has our default data. If I go in here, I go to project 2 and it has our default data. So let's get the real data. And I'm going to try to do this as fast as I can because I don't want to eat into the rest of the evening. We'll go import GraphQL from Gatsby. And because we're creating a page, which means that we get access to a query. So I can export const query, and we'll do GraphQL. And we can say, I want to get, we need to use that slug. And so anything that we pass in Gatsby as the context here, we can use this as a variable in GraphQL. So it's been passed in, it's a slug string, so we can use that. So let's go back out here and figure out what we need. I want to get a single project. So let's go projects JSON, and I want the slug to equal, let's say, project 1 for now. I'll hard code that. And inside of here, I want to get the title, the URL, the description, and then the image. We want the child image sharp. And then we'll get the fluid one and the source. Okay, so this gives us what we want. So I can take this out and I can come in here and I can replace this with our slug. And so now it's going to query for the project that was created with this page. So when we create this page, we're passing in its slug, and then it's going to use its slug to look up the data. And this has the benefit of showing us what data is being used right inside of our component. So I'll get into this data here, and then I'm going to, again, do that super annoying thing where I abstract these out. So let's go const title equals data dot projects JSON dot title. We will do description, do the URL, and then for the image, doubled. Image data is going to be image dot child image sharp dot fluid, and we're going to switch this out to be that same fragment. So let me just grab that, come right back over here, and drop it in. And so now what we've done is we have set this up to actually read data, and we're running out of time, which means that I'm never going to be able to show you why I did this really silly like destructuring here.
I'm so curious. You have to show us.
All right. So having done this now, I have my project. Okay. But we didn't add our image. So let's go into the project and we can literally just copy. Where did it go? This one. And I want to copy out my data here, go back to the project, and we can just drop this thing right in. It should just work, and it sure does. Okay, so now we have a full portfolio. Like for all intents and purposes, this just works. And what's really fun about this is if I inspect this image, for example, we can see that it sets up like a Gatsby image wrapper. We have this little baby tiny image that is 20 by 11 pixels. When that gets scaled up to the 372 by 199 is being displayed at, that causes Chrome to blur it. And then we have a picture element that sets up our source set and all the good things that we want. It chooses this one here, the 5AA, which is, I think, this one, which is our biggest one. Presumably because we already loaded that. Chrome is kind of smart and it looks at the cache to see what it's actually using. But then what will happen is if you are on a slower connection, which I don't think, you can kind of see it, you can see those images blur in a little bit. And that's a lazy loading technique that'll make your pages load a little bit faster. So where this starts to get really interesting is if we then go, I mean, I'm a full 10 minutes over. Do you want me to, I feel like I'm eating into somebody's time.
Keep going, and maybe we'll have a React Adelphia site by the end of this.
Okay, so let's assume then that we get to this part of the portfolio and we're like, you know what? I don't want to manage a JSON file. I want to pull this from somewhere else. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use Sanity. Sanity's a CMS. I like it. It makes my life easier. And I've already got it installed. So that's nice. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to take all of this, and I don't need it anymore. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to install Gatsby Source Sanity. And then for the options, I'm going to set a project ID. And now I just have one of these ready. So I'm not going to go into how to set up Sanity. We're going to use the data set of production. And we're going to use watch mode of true, which isn't going to help us very much today because we're not going to be editing it. But so now I've set up Sanity. And if I want to use Sanity, I am going to just start editing my, my GraphQL queries. So in this one, instead of using projects JSON, I'm going to use Sanity project. And Sanity uses versioning for the slug. So we're going to rewrite this to be the current slug. And then I'm going to switch out child image sharp for asset. And then they use a slightly different fragment. So it's Gatsby Sanity instead of image. And we're going to use image fluid. Down here, I can replace all of these instances with Sanity project. I can replace this one here with asset and the URL. Oh, we're not using the slug in this one. But this is why I did this destructuring, because note, I don't have to change this at all. It's just done. We've already swapped out our image. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to do all Sanity project. And then here we need to get the slug current, change this to asset. And we need to change this one over to Gatsby Sanity image fluid. Down here, all Sanity project. And we're going to do the slug current and change that to asset. And again, no changes required. It just works. I'm going to go to, let's see, none of these need to be updated. We need to fix the Gatsby node. So all Sanity project. And I need the slug current. And down here, I'm just going to do slug.current. Okay, so assuming I didn't miss anything, if I stop and restart this, it should rebuild us a portfolio. No, I screwed it up. Projects JSON. Where did I miss this? Project template. Where? What?
I don't think you saved that file.
Good catch. All right. And now it says it compiled successfully. Okay, so here are our projects from Sanity. And it created new slugs for us. All that stuff works. And there you go. So with basically just changing the data, we were able to stand up a completely different CMS and drop it into an existing Gatsby site with basically the same results. And you'll note that we also are getting that same preloading, but it comes out of Sanity because Sanity is, they're, like I said, they're a pretty good CMS and they think about this stuff. So they give us the ability to create that same array of source set images that we need to create lazy loadable images with the blur up preview and all that. And so it happens very fast. I'm not going to turn on my throttling or anything because I don't know what that'll do to the connection. But that gives us a pretty good overview of how quickly you can build a portfolio from scratch. I mean, we did a portfolio with 2 data sources in about 35 minutes, I think. So with that, I will shut up and stop talking. And you can find me on Twitter if you have any questions. I think we're out of time. Did you want to do questions or do you want me to just go away?
Yeah. Hey, Jason, we'll definitely take 1 or 2 questions before our next speaker if you have some time.
Sure.
So does anybody have any questions for Jason right now before he leaves us? All right.
Yeah, I just had a question about your naming convention for your component files. It was like lowercase hyphen lowercase word.js instead of like Pascal case. Is there a reason for that?
Total personal preference. There's no real reason.
All right, cool.
I got a question. You don't even have
Sure.
to give me a mic.
Go ahead, Dom.
So, for people who strictly write React apps every day, what would you say is your favorite thing about writing Gatsby daily instead of just, the regular old Create React app that I'm sure everybody uses consistently?
There are a couple things that I would say are like the reason that I started using Gatsby. And the first one is that the time to actually get something on the screen is virtually zero. Like I had corrupt node modules and I was still able to get like live reloading apps set up and running on the screen in about 5 minutes. So typically when you're not going from a corrupted repo, that's going to take you like 30 seconds. Then you have the ability to just kind of like put data wherever you want because Gatsby's data layer is smart. And that GraphQL layer that's in there, you can put data from any source in there, any REST API, the file system, your database, other GraphQL APIs, whatever you're excited about, you can pull that in and it gets normalized into a simple GraphQL query. And so from my standpoint, like those two things combined, and then, I mean, well, all right, one more thing. The other thing that I really like is that when the site builds, it's static assets. So you can ship it and the site runs without JavaScript. You don't have to have a server running. when it's deployed, you can put it up on a CDN, let your server go down, and those static assets will just run. If somebody has JavaScript disabled, they can still see your site and interact with it. If they have JavaScript enabled, we've done all these things like setting up link prefetching, the lazy loading, all of these different techniques to make your site load faster, so that you're going to get the benefits of like the whole web community's perf advice, because we take all the recommendations from Google, all the recommendations from people like Harry Roberts, and these very, very intelligent people who are spending a lot of time becoming perf experts. When they publish something, the Gatsby community builds it into Gatsby Core, and you get that for free. It just ships as part of your build. So all those sorts of things are like, those are the reasons that I moved to using Gatsby as my primary web dev platform, is because like, I don't want to be a perf expert. That's not, I like doing perf, but it's not the thing that I want to spend most of my time on. And it's not the part that I want to go deep or really become a world-class expert in. I'd rather let the world-class experts do that and just reap the rewards for free. So that's a very long-winded answer.
No, very cool. I think another one of the things that I've been interested in lately while I've been building a Gatsby theme is like all the things that you can kind of pass through when creating pages, through context, through plugin options, just the Gatsby node, method API as is. It just feels really powerful while I'm building something.
Yeah, it's super flexible. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a node app. So you can, like, I did something today as a proof of concept where I just pulled up Axios and hit an API and then used Gatsby's create node API hook to feed that REST result into Gatsby so that I could query it elsewhere in the site. And you can create relationships. So like if I wanted to do products as a JSON file, but I wanted to store transaction data in Stripe, I could pull both of those things in at build time and connect them so that they become related nodes. The like product sale information could be linked to the JSON node, and those things could be queried as if they were all part of the same thing. If you want to go deep down the rabbit hole, we can also do like abstract interfaces. So you could create a generic like post type and then pull in data from multiple sources. You could pull in like markdown files for your developers and WordPress for your marketing team, and whatever else you're feeling, put them all into this generic blog post type. And then your front end team is building posts by querying all blog posts, and they never have to care what the source is. You could literally hot swap your CMS out and the front end team would never even know.
That's super cool. Thank you, Jason. I think that's all the time we have for now. Having given 2 talks about Gatsby myself, I would say this went a lot better than those did. So I'm glad you were here to join us for this. Also, Gatsby, for those who don't know, like Reactadelphia, they have a Discord server. If you're new to Gatsby or building something in Gatsby and you need help from the community or people like Jason, please hop in there. I hang out in there during the day, and it's a pretty interesting space. So thanks again, Jason. And I guess we'll move on to our next speaker, who's going to be Andrew, who's here in person. So this time it won't be remote.
See you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason. I don't know if anybody caught Jason's shirt. He was wearing a React Hook shirt, which was called Use Beer. So we'll have to find out what the body of that is.